Welcome to the IT Fundamentals Training Series. This is episode 22. I'm your host, Mark Haupt, and today we are going to talk about external storage devices and the plethora of opportunities you have to carry data around and cause security risks. Welcome to the IT Fundamentals Training Series. This is Chapter 2, Episode 22, and we are going to talk about external storage devices. And in my intro, I said, and to cause security problems. And that's really one of the things that we have to be concerned about that I'm going to harp on just a little bit at the very beginning here in regards to these storage devices. So there's a plethora of storage devices out there, and we're going to talk about those in a minute. USB drives, memory cards, all the way up to full-size hard drives and even network-attached storage devices. And we're looking at pages 80 through 84 here in the book to address this. But before we launch into that, I want to talk to you up front about a major problem with these scenarios, is that if not used properly, these could be extreme exposures from a security perspective to your network as well as to your data. Let's take a look at those from two different perspectives. All right, let's get the baseline understanding here that each of these storage devices is holding some form of data. So let's take a look at it from how it's a threat to your network. So it is a famous attack method, or just an attack method that attackers use in order to attack networks, is they will leave storage devices like USB drives out on even on tables at a Starbucks, or at a place, a restaurant like a McDonald's, or drop them on the sidewalk, or even disgustingly leave them on different places in a bathroom, because they know people will pick these up. And because these are typically not labeled, someone will take that and they'll plug it into their computer and inside their home or inside their office, which is the typical target, in order to try and find something in good faith, try and find something on that thumb drive or on that USB drive, that memory stick, to try and return it to the person that lost it. So here's a very typical scenario of how that would happen. All right, if I'm a penetration tester, or if I'm even worse, a bad guy, I would target a business. Let's say my business is on the 19th floor of a skyscraper in Baltimore, Maryland. All right, I would enter into that building and go up to the 19th floor and perhaps drop a thumb drive right outside the front door of that office, or perhaps go into the restroom and leave a thumb drive on top of the countertop where people wash their hands, or even worse, maybe on the sill, if you will, of a urinal or a toilet. The idea there is that someone will pick that up and they will say, I don't know whose this is. I got to figure out whose it is, but because it's so close to my office, it's probably belonging to somebody in the office. So if I plug that into my computer, I'll very quickly be able to see files on there, or perhaps even email or something that's on there that will identify who the ownership is. Now, as the attacker, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get you to go that far, because once you've gone that far, I will have a program on there that will execute and begin running across your network immediately, that either collects information from your network and emails it or transmits it out through FTP to my server, where I can then analyze the data later. And that could be any piece of data. That could be downloading all the passwords from your Active Directory environment. It could be downloading all the passwords from your browser or something else. Usually it's going to be something small, like from your browser or another similar type of thing, so that it will keep the data packet down low, so it's not detectable. So once it gets to my server, then I can analyze it and I can use those credentials to try and legitimately log in remotely to the attackers, or to the office there, perhaps through a VPN or a different type of scenario. So that's how I would go about attacking if I were doing penetration testing, or if I were to do some sort of if I was the bad guy trying to attack, and that's how it could impact your network. Of course, I could also launch a ransomware attack, or I can launch some other type of attack within the network immediately. If I've got a grudge against that company, let's say I was a former employee and I didn't like the way they terminated me, I could drop one of these things outside of the office. Somebody picks it up, takes it in there, they plug it in, and boom, immediately a virus or something starts executing across the network. That's another way that an attack could occur. Now, the other way that I talked about could be a major problem is with data leakage. All right. So a lot of people will use these memory sticks, especially before or when they're trying to subvert email, before email would allow you to send files out. They'll put all this data on these memory sticks and perhaps take them home to work on their computer at home, something along those lines. And when that happens, all that data is removed from your office. Perhaps you've downloaded a database. Perhaps you've downloaded a whole package of files, confidential intellectual property or something along those lines to the USB drive, and you either drop it and lose it, or you take it home and you put it on your home network, you put it on your home computer, and somebody hacks into your home computer. So these are the ways that these devices can be used as security problems, if you will, security vulnerabilities that we need to be very careful of as we're using these. Now, obviously, the typical way, putting certain types of devices into a computer in order to, or into a recording device like a camera in order to take pictures and things like that. That's what their intended purpose is. But let's go ahead and let's walk through the different types of external storage devices, is what these are called here, so that we can take a look at what they are. All right, so external storage device, some form of memory, whether it's a spinning disk like a regular hard disk, or it's a chip like a non-volatile memory stick, that type of thing. Those are the things that we're talking about here. So the first thing they talk about are flash drives, and they show a figure 2.16 showing two different types of flash drives. Everybody's familiar with these things. You've had them. They're essentially a USB port on the end of them. You plug them into your computer and they could store data currently in the ranges of all the way from a couple of megabytes all the way up to, I've seen them as high as 500 gigabytes and even a terabyte that you can literally put in your pocket and walk away with. So these are called flash drives or USB drives or thumb drives. And so those are the things that you need to take a look at from a test perspective, are the names that are associated with this, because everybody's familiar with them. Now, another thing you need to look at from the test perspective on these flash drives or these USB drives is that usually they have about a 10-year shelf life. So they do actually have a shelf life where they may fall apart. And usually it's the outside casing that falls apart, or the USB connection itself that falls apart. And this is also important from a security perspective, because people see these things as throwaway. And so they may plug them in going, it's not working anymore. Don't need it. So they just throw it in the trash, but they don't remember what they put on there. Or perhaps they did put some important things on there and they feel like they can't get it off. There are actually ways to repair these. For example, cracking open the case and resoldering the USB connection back to the little circuit board that's there. I've actually recovered a lot of data just by doing that, because most frequently that's what happens, is the USB attachment on there somehow gets jingled and bent and whatnot, and then all of a sudden that piece alone is what's not working. Now, anytime I've corrected those kinds of things and fixed them, I've immediately removed the data and then wiped the drive and threw it away or destroyed it at that point. And then destroyed it is probably the key. Take a hammer, smash it on the cement. Make sure the chip itself is actually smashed, not just the casing. All right, the next thing is our memory cards. There's a couple of different kinds of memory cards. There's CF cards, there's SD cards, and there's micro SD cards. So all of these are typically put into cameras or phones, mobile devices like that. They can hold up to, again, I've seen up to a terabyte. I've got multiple 256 gigabyte cards that I use in my camera, and I could take literally 4,000 photos or more on my camera with one of these 256 gigabyte. You could put them in a GoPro camera and record a bunch of video. So the purpose of these, again, is to simply record. There's a picture of them in figure 2.17. And notice that this one doesn't have a USB plug-in on it. You actually have to have some sort of a card reader that you insert this into. Now, what they show here in 2.17 is an SD card. A micro SD card almost always comes these days with that same size of SD card reader. But the actual micro SD chip itself, or the card, is inserted into the end, down on the end of these SD cards. The other one is the CF card, or the compact flash card. Those you won't find as frequently anymore, but they're much bigger versions of SD cards. All right. So moving on to other types of things we need to look at are external hard drives. We've talked about hard drives ad nauseum. An external hard drive is basically a hard drive that's inside of a case that you plug in with a USB port into your computer. Now, a lot of these external hard drives use a USB or FireWire or Thunderbolt connection. So going back to episode 21, we talked about those different types of peripheral connections that you might be able to use. And each one of those has a different transfer speed. So if you want to do high speed transfer, you're probably going to want to look at a USB 3.0 or 4.0 type of technology to do that transfer. Usually an external hard drive is not your primary hard drive that you're using to boot your computer up. That's usually an SSD, but it is a data drive. And again, with it being a external device, it can be stolen, moved, removed, trashed, broken, accidentally destroyed. All sorts of things could happen to this. So I recommend that anytime you buy one of these, you buy two of them, and you make an exact copy frequently of the external hard drive that you're using as your primary external, so that if something happens to it, you could do that. Alternatively to buying a second one is that you could use cloud storage. But typically the reason you're buying an external hard drive is because cloud storage, putting up into Amazon or Google or whatnot, can cost some money, that it's cheaper to go buy sometimes one of these external hard drives. When I go out and do my photography for air shows or out on a trip, out in wildlife photography, I'll have two 1 terabyte drives that I download all my photos that are on an SD card to the external hard drive. And then I'll back up that external hard drive to the second one. In fact, on some of my better photos, I even put them up in the cloud for safekeeping. So that's important things to look at with the external hard drive. Then we got external optical drives. So there we're talking simply a CD or DVD or Blu-ray drive that can be attached, again, the same manner as your external hard drive through Thunderbolt, USB, FireWire connections to your computer. Other than that, they're the same thing that you would put in your computer that we've talked about before. Now, here's a new one that we haven't actually talked about, but is network attached storage. So what NAS, or network attached storage, is this is a typically what we call an array, or a box full of hard drives, maybe 2, 3, 4, or even 10 hard drives that are in one box that has a panel or a circuit board for each of them each of the drives to interact with, that also has a network interface cable on it, so you can plug it into the network. We could get into a lot more details on NAS, and we in fact will get into a lot more details on NAS when we do the A+ certification. So for right now, the only thing you need to understand is that network attached storage is a large storage array that is attached to the network, usually has multiple disks in it, and is somewhat portable. It's interesting that they talk about it as an external storage device, because although it is external storage, I really view it more as its own standalone unit. It's more of a network function where you can upload your data to, and in a small, medium-sized business, this would replace a server that a larger business would use. So the connection on that is the RJ45 network interface, running probably 100 gig type of connection or greater. on your network. So that will allow for the speed to come off fast. Now, just like with any other hard drive, you're wanting to look at, these are usually spinning disk type of hard drives. So you're wanting to look at not only storage capacity, but response rates. So you want that disk to spin faster. Most of the NAS out there is going to run at least 7,200, if not 10,000 RPM or greater, in order for you to pull it off of there fairly quickly. You can connect to these things with USBs, but I typically recommend that you connect to them with a network cable instead. So that way they are truly network attached storage devices. All right, so that should be good for right now. Next time we'll be talking about external storage connectors, and once again, I want to encourage you to reach out to me via email. Here we are right here, mhelped@commonsensesecurity.net. Give us 5 stars, do all those kinds of things, but just keep in mind that we are here just to simply teach. No flash, no bangs out there, nothing, no fireworks going off. We're just simply here to teach you security, and hopefully we're being and IT functions. So we're hopefully being effective in that. If you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you in episode 23.